Why do some people quit jobs that make them miserable, while others stay for decades, slowly dying inside? The answer isn't about courage, it's about money. Specifically, it's about a secret stash of cash that people used to build in silence, a financial weapon so powerful that it could buy you the one thing no salary ever could, your dignity. They called it different things over the years: running money, mad money, the escape fund. But the most honest name, the one that cuts right to the bone, is this: the walk-away fund. And if you don't have one right now, you're trapped. You just don't know it yet. Let me tell you something about power. Real power isn't about how much money you make. It's about how long you can survive without making any. Think about that. The person who can say no and mean it, who can walk out of a room and not come crawling back 3 days later when the rent is due, that person holds all the cards. But most people, they're playing poker with an empty wallet, and everyone at the table knows it. This isn't a new problem. This is the oldest game in the book. And to understand how we got here, how an entire generation forgot the one financial rule that actually matters, you have to go back, way back, to a time when people still remembered what it meant to be truly broke, and they swore on everything they held sacred that they would never be that helpless again. The year is 1933. The Great Depression is tightening its grip around America's throat. Banks are failing. Factories are closing. Bread lines stretch around city blocks. But something else is happening. Something quieter. Something the history books don't spend much time on. In kitchens and bedrooms across the country, people are hiding money. Not investing it, not depositing it, hiding it. In coffee cans buried in the backyard, in mattresses, in the hollowed-out pages of books. They're building what people at the time called a mad money fund, though that term originally meant something different, something smaller, something almost quaint by comparison. Back in the 1920s, mad money was what a woman carried on a date. Not much, just enough to pay for a cab ride home if the man she was with turned out to be a creep or a drunk. $5, maybe 10. Enough to walk away. That was the whole point, the ability to leave. But after the Depression hit, after people watched their neighbors lose everything because they'd trusted the wrong bank or the wrong boss or the wrong system, that concept evolved. It grew teeth. It became something bigger, something existential. It became survival money. The kind of money you never touched unless the whole world was falling apart. The kind of money that meant the difference between staying in a bad situation and getting out alive. My grandmother had one. She grew up during the Depression, and she never forgot it. Even decades later, when she had a comfortable house in the suburbs and a husband with a steady job, she kept cash hidden in places she never told anyone about. Not my grandfather, not her kids, nobody. I found out about it after she died, when we were cleaning out her house. $3,000 in $20 bills, rubber-banded and tucked inside the lining of her winter coat. Another $500 in an envelope taped to the underside of a drawer. She'd lived through a time when banks failed, and men came home from work and told their wives there was no work anymore, and she'd sworn she would never be that vulnerable again. That generation understood something we've forgotten. They understood that the appearance of stability is not the same thing as actual stability. They understood that a job is not security. A paycheck is not safety. Because a job can disappear tomorrow, the company can fold. Your boss can decide he doesn't like your face. The economy can collapse. And if all you have is a direct deposit that's 2 weeks away and a credit card that's already maxed out, you're not employed. You're a hostage. But somewhere between then and now, we lost the thread. We stopped building walk-away money. And I think I know why. It started in the 1950s. Post-war boom. The American dream gets packaged and sold like breakfast cereal. You graduate high school. You get a job at the factory or the company. You work there for 30 years. You get a pension. You retire with a gold watch. The system worked, at least for a while. at least for some people. And when the system is working, you don't question it. You don't prepare for it to fail. You trust it. That trust was a mistake. But it was a profitable mistake. Profitable for someone else. See, the corporations and the banks figured something out in the decades that followed. They figured out that a population living paycheck to paycheck is a compliant population. You can't afford to make waves when you're 3 missed paychecks away from eviction. You can't demand better treatment when your kids need braces and your savings account has $200 in it. You certainly can't quit when the health insurance you need to stay alive is tied to your employment. The system, slowly and deliberately, became a trap. And the trap worked because people stopped building the one thing that could spring them loose. The walk-away fund died a quiet death. Replaced by what? Credit cards, car loans, mortgages that stretched 30 years into the future, student debt that followed you to the grave. The message was clear, even if nobody said it out loud. Don't save. Spend. Consume. Finance the life you want now and worry about paying for it later. There's always more credit. There's always another loan. And if you can't afford something, that's a personal failing. Work harder. Get a side hustle. Monetize your hobbies. Turn your existence into a revenue stream. But here's the thing they don't tell you. All of that, every bit of that financial engineering, exists to keep you locked in place. Because the moment you have enough money to walk away, you become dangerous. Not to yourself, to them. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you've got a job you hate. Maybe it's the work itself. Maybe it's the boss who talks to you like you're stupid. Maybe it's the commute that eats 2 hours of your life every day. Maybe it's the slow realization that this isn't what you thought you'd be doing with your life, and every morning you wake up and feel the weight of that disappointment pressing down on your chest. You know you should quit. Everyone who loves you has told you to quit, but you can't. Because you've got rent due in 12 days. You've got a car payment. You've got credit card debt from the last time something broke and you didn't have the cash to fix it. You've got no cushion, no buffer, no escape hatch. So you stay. You bite your tongue when your boss undermines you in a meeting. You swallow your pride when they pass you over for a promotion they promised you. You take it, all of it. Because what choice do you have? That's not employment. That's indentured servitude with a dental plan. Now imagine a different version. Same job, same boss, same everything. Except this time, you've got $20,000 in a bank account that nobody knows about. Not your partner. Not your friends. Just you. It's sitting there, quiet, waiting. And one day, your boss crosses a line, says something disrespectful, asks you to do something unethical, treats you like you're disposable, and instead of swallowing it like you've swallowed everything else, you stand up, you look him in the eye, and you quit. Not in 2 weeks, not after you've found something else, right now, today, this moment, because you can. Because you've got $20,000 that says you don't need this. You can survive for 6 months, maybe a year if you're careful. Long enough to find something better, long enough to breathe, long enough to remember what it feels like to not be afraid. That's power, real power. The power to say no, the power to walk away. And the system, the entire apparatus of modern capitalism, is designed to make sure you never have it. Think about how jobs are structured now. They pay you just enough to keep you showing up, but not enough to save. They dangle benefits in front of you, health insurance and retirement matching, but only if you stay. They create cultures where working 60 hours a week is normal, where being available at all times is expected, where setting boundaries makes you look uncommitted. And if you complain, if you push back, they remind you, subtly or not so subtly, that there are 100 people who'd love to have your job, people who won't complain, people who'll work harder for less. This isn't an accident. This is the design. Go back to the early 1900s. The factory owners and the industrialists, they understood labor dynamics. They knew that a worker who could leave was a worker who could demand better conditions. So they created company towns. They paid workers in scrip, company currency that was only good at the company store. They made sure that every dollar a worker earned went right back to the company. The workers couldn't save, couldn't leave, couldn't bargain. They were trapped by design. We like to think we've moved past that. We haven't. We've just made the trap more sophisticated. The company town is now the entire economy. The scrip is your direct deposit, your credit score, your employment history, and the company store is everywhere. It's your rent, your car, your phone, your streaming subscriptions, your coffee habit. The system ensures that your money is spent before you even see it. And if you've got nothing left over, well, that's the point. Let me tell you about a man I knew. I'll call him David. David worked in corporate America for 15 years. Middle management, decent salary, good benefits. On paper, he was doing fine. But he was miserable. His boss was a tyrant. The company culture was toxic. People backstabbed each other for promotions. Meetings were traps. Every day felt like walking through a minefield. He'd come home, pour a drink, stare at the wall, and wonder how he'd ended up here. His wife would ask him why he didn't just quit, and he'd tell her the same thing every time. They couldn't afford it. They had a mortgage, 2 car payments, credit card debt. Their daughter was in a private school. They'd built a life that required his income, and there was no slack in the system, no room for error, no possibility of escape. So he stayed, year after year, and I watched him change. The light went out of his eyes. He stopped talking about things he cared about. He stopped having hobbies. He became a ghost in his own life, going through the motions, counting down the years until retirement, which was still 2 decades away. Then something happened. His father died, left him some money, not a fortune, $60,000. And David did something smart. He didn't tell anyone at work. He didn't upgrade his lifestyle. He put that money in a separate account and pretended it didn't exist. 6 months later, his boss humiliated him in a meeting, blamed him for something that wasn't his fault, did it in front of the entire team. And David, for the first time in 15 years, didn't take it. He stood up. He said this isn't acceptable. And when his boss told him he could leave if he didn't like it, David smiled. He said okay, and he walked out. He told me later that it was the best moment of his life. Not because he had another job lined up. He didn't. Not because he had a plan. He didn't have that either. But because for the first time in 15 years, he'd had a choice, and he'd chosen himself. That's what the walk-away fund does. It doesn't just give you money. It gives you options. And options, in a world designed to eliminate them, are worth more than gold. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Building a walk-away fund requires sacrifice, real sacrifice. Not the kind of sacrifice where you skip your daily latte and pretend that's enough. I'm talking about looking at your life and asking hard questions. Do I need this? Do I need this car? Do I need this apartment? Do I need to live in this city? Do I need to keep up with the lifestyle my friends have? Do I need to impress people I don't even like? Most people can't do it, because it means admitting that the life they've built, the life they're working so hard to maintain, might be a cage, and that's a brutal thing to admit. It's easier to keep running on the treadmill and telling yourself that someday, eventually, it'll get better. Someday you'll get that promotion. Someday you'll pay off the debt. Someday you'll have enough. But someday never comes. Because the system isn't designed to let you get ahead. It's designed to keep you in place. And the only way out is to stop playing by the rules. Here's what they won't tell you in the personal finance seminars and the self-help books. The walk-away fund isn't about retirement planning. It's not about building wealth. It's about buying time. Time to think. Time to breathe. Time to figure out what you actually want instead of what you've been conditioned to want. And time, in this economy, in this culture, is the scarcest resource there is. So how much do you need? The number varies. Some people say 3 months of expenses. Some say 6. Some say a year. I say it depends on what you're walking away from and what you're walking toward. But here's a baseline. If you can't cover your basic needs, rent and food and utilities, for at least 6 months without any income, you're not financially stable. You're 1 bad month away from disaster, and you know it. That knowledge, that fear, it shapes every decision you make. It keeps you small. It keeps you compliant. It keeps you exactly where the system wants you. Building the fund isn't complicated. It's just hard. You take a percentage of every paycheck and you put it somewhere you can't easily access. Not a checking account. Not an investment account where you'll be tempted to watch it grow and then spend it. A separate savings account. Boring, simple, untouchable, and you pretend it doesn't exist. You build your budget around the money you have left. You cut expenses. You stop eating out. You cancel subscriptions. You buy used instead of new. You stop trying to keep up. You disappear from the consumption race. And people will notice. They'll ask why you're not going out anymore, why you're not buying new clothes, why you're driving that old car. And you can't tell them the truth, because the truth sounds crazy. You're hoarding cash so that someday, maybe, you can quit a job you don't even hate yet. You're preparing for a future disaster that might never come. You're building a lifeboat while everyone else is dancing on the deck of the Titanic. But you keep going, because you understand something they don't. You understand that freedom isn't free. It costs exactly as much as you're willing to sacrifice to get it. Let me take you back one more time. 1973. The oil crisis. Inflation spiking. The economy in chaos. And in the middle of it, there was a woman named Margaret. She worked as a secretary in a law firm. Her boss was a partner, a man who'd built his career on the backs of people like her, people who did the actual work while he took the credit. He was condescending, dismissive. He'd make her redo documents because he didn't like the font. He'd ask her to work late and then forget to thank her. He treated her like furniture. Margaret had been saving for years. Not for anything specific, just saving, putting money aside. And one day, her boss asked her to lie to a client. Nothing huge, just a small deception. The kind of thing that happens in offices every day. And Margaret said no. Her boss was shocked. Nobody said no to him. He threatened to fire her. And Margaret reached into her purse, pulled out an envelope, and handed him a letter. Her resignation. Effective immediately. She told me this story years later. She said the look on his face was worth every dollar she'd saved, because he'd thought she needed him. He'd thought she was trapped. And in that moment, he realized he'd been wrong. She'd had the power all along. She just hadn't used it until he forced her to. She didn't have another job. She didn't have a plan. She had $8,000 in a savings account, which in 1973 was enough to live on for almost a year. And she spent that year figuring out what she actually wanted to do. Not what she'd fallen into, not what paid the bills, what she wanted. She ended up starting her own business. It wasn't glamorous. She did bookkeeping for small companies, but it was hers, and she never had to swallow her pride for a paycheck again. That's the thing about the walkaway fund. It's not about the money. It's about what the money represents. It's about reclaiming your dignity. It's about remembering that you're a human being, not a resource to be extracted. It's about having the option to say this isn't acceptable and meaning it and backing it up with action. And look, I'm not naive. I know that not everyone can save. I know there are people working 2 jobs just to keep the lights on, people drowning in medical debt, people taking care of sick parents or disabled kids, people for whom the idea of saving anything is a sick joke. This isn't about blaming them. This is about naming the system that put them there. This is about recognizing that if you're so broke you can't save, that's not a personal failing. That's a policy choice. That's a society that's decided your labor is worth extracting, but your life is not worth protecting. But if you can save, even a little, you should. Because the alternative is worse. The alternative is spending your entire life at the mercy of people who do not care about you. People who see you as a line item on a budget. People who will replace you the moment it becomes convenient. And when you're 70 years old, looking back, you don't want to realize you spent 50 years being afraid. The walk-away fund is a radical act. It's a refusal to participate in your own exploitation. It's a bet on yourself. It's a declaration that your dignity is not for sale, or at least not for the price they're offering. And in a world that tells you to spend everything, to finance everything, to want everything, to need everything, the simple act of saving is rebellion. So here's my challenge to you. Start today. Not tomorrow, not next month, today. Take whatever you would have spent on something you don't need and put it in an account. $10, $20, $50, whatever you can. And don't touch it. Let it sit there. Let it grow. And every time you add to it, remind yourself what it's for. It's not for a vacation. It's not for a new car. It's for the day when someone crosses a line and you need to be able to walk away. Because that day will come. It always does. And when it does, you'll have a choice. You can stay and take it like you've always taken it. Or you can stand up, look them in the eye, and walk out. And the only thing that will determine which choice you make is whether or not you built the fund. Your dignity has a price. The question is whether you're willing to pay it.